You know what's wild to me is that the Green Bay Packers just can't seem to shake Aaron Rodgers. What do I mean by that? We're going to talk about that here in this video. But the Packers trade rumors just caught some fire. What does that mean? And how is Aaron Rodgers even being talked about any of this, right? So, according to a source, a Pittsburgh Steelers source, Andrew Filippani said that the Steelers have inquired with the Green Bay Packers about wide receiver Romeo Dobbs, who we know that the Packers, Brian Gutekunst may be looking to trade him or looking to shop him pre the draft. Would it happen post the draft? I'm going to give you my input on that here in this video. So it says right here, the Green Bay Packers drafted two wide receivers. We already know that. Two of the first three rounds, the Packers snagged some wideouts. And Aaron Rodgers played with Romeo in 2022. It's believed that that Rodgers really liked Romeo. I'm sure he did. We'll see where that goes. Again, that is just a source saying that. So how credible is that? Okay, so obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers on Wednesday, they traded and parted ways with George Pickens. It was then talked about and rumored that, well, Aaron Rodgers didn't really like the diva-ness of George Pickens, which is the irony in that, because Aaron Rodgers is a complete diva. He always comes out on the McAfee show and saying, like, listen, I don't want to start drama. I'm not that guy. I don't want to, everybody talking about me, but he consistently wiggles his way into the media in a not so obvious way, but he drops these subtle hints out there, which he wants everybody to talk about him. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to feel for them because they are still on the line right now. They need a quarterback. They thought that Aaron Rodgers, and who knows what happened behind closed doors, but they thought that Aaron Rodgers was a shoo-in. They thought he was going to be coming to Pittsburgh to play. Now, Aaron Rodgers hasn't come out and said, no, listen, I'm going to retire. He's in fact made it pretty well known that he wants to play football, and he made it known that he wanted to play football for the Minnesota Vikings, probably because he wanted to stick it to the Packers. So there's some clout behind this and the credibility to this, because now you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, you hate to see this because the Pittsburgh Steelers, I thought, was run differently, but now they seem to be all in on Aaron Rodgers. Like, okay, even so much so to where I've heard they're potentially rumored to go and get Alan Lazard, which would be funny to me. And that, then what? Are we going to see Randall Cobb go there? And now you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers rumored to go and get Romeo Dobbs. They seem to think that that would be maybe the enticing factor for Aaron Rodgers to maybe push him over the edge. Of course, he had some personal stuff going on in his life, and then all of a sudden he's seen with a wedding ring. So now it's like, okay, is this dude married? Is he not married? And he's not coming out talking about it. We know that he's a private person, but he's also not a private person. And when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't disappoint. That is for sure. Okay, so here's my take on it. Okay, and then we're going to take a look at the Packers depth chart to see if this is even a believable thing. Okay, so yes, I do think that there is some credibility. I'm sure the Pittsburgh Steelers have reached out to the Packers about Romeo. Would I be willing to part ways with Romeo as a GM? I absolutely would, because of the concussions. He had two in the last 6 weeks. That certainly plays a factor into his future and his longevity into the league. When you start having, he was wearing the concussion hat, and then all of a sudden, he just hits the ground. I mean, just a normal fall. And then he goes out with a concussion. He could hardly walk, all of that stuff. And I know freak things happen, but Romeo Dobbs seems to be all of a sudden concussion prone, which is major concern if you're the Packers and you've got, some talent there at the wide receiver position. And that's why you go and you get some talented players out there like Matthew Golden. So here's the thing. Packers are super happy with the wide receiver core there. We've already heard Matt LaFleur come out and talk about how geeked he is with this offense because he can do so much with the playmakers that are there. Right now, the Packers have a surplus at talent at the wide receiver position, which last year that seemed to be their crutch. That was the thorn in the side that really hampered them from winning more games, going further, health, all of that stuff. So Jaden Reed is a playmaker, and you're going to see some big things out of him. Christian Watson, of course, we don't know with his torn ACL. We don't know what his timetable is. He said he's a couple months out. So whether that is true or not, they both those guys had more than 500 yards receiving last year. Dontavian Wicks also had 400 yards, 5 touchdowns last season. Okay, so you know that they've got some talent there, and you know that there is certainly some playmakers there. They go in the draft, they add Golden, they add Savion Williams. Savion Williams would be a perfect replacement, in my opinion, for Romeo Dobbs. But is it an instant replacement when we start talking about, you know, uh, how good he's going to be from the gates? There's some question about Savion Williams' hands, all of that stuff. So I don't necessarily think that it would be in the Packers' best interest to part ways this year with Romeo Dobbs. Now, if they're looking to get something out of him before they have to really decide, are we going to sign this guy or not? Maybe you get something out of it if Pittsburgh's willing to. I think Pittsburgh gave up a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick in exchange for Pickens and a sixth-round pick. So what would they give in exchange for Romeo Dobbs? Certainly not as good as Pickens, but Pickens is one of those cancers in the locker room. And Matt LaFleur has already come out and said, hey, listen, I'm super happy about Romeo. He's a great player for this locker room. So when you take a look at the depth chart of the Green Bay Packers, let's take a look at that right now. Okay, so when you look at who they've got at the position, they've got Jaden Reed. Christian Watson's going to be coming back. They've got guys like Bo Melton, Malik Heath. They've got Matthew Golden, who they drafted, Savion Williams, who they drafted, Romeo Dobbs, uh, Hardman, who they went and signed as a free agent. I don't think he's going to even make the team out of those players that you're looking at right there. So they've got depth, and that is the position that they could, you know, stand to lose at least something and gain something in return, which Romeo Dobbs is the guy that makes sense. Now, leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts. Do the Packers pull the trigger on something? I'm sure Pittsburgh has, reached out to Brian Gutekunst in with some interest in Romeo Dobbs. So leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts there. If you would want the Packers to go ahead and do that, but I don't think there's credibility to this, just because I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers as a franchise being run as, hey, listen, we're so willing to get Aaron Rodgers here that we're going to do exactly what the New York Jets did by getting all of his buddies in a system that just really doesn't work for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs to stay true to who they are, not bend on any of that just to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers there. Leave your comments, let me know your thoughts, and as always, go Pack Go.